It feels awful when you realize that in order to be respected in a corporate environment, you have to speak in a way that's pushy, aggressive, and that doesn't feel authentic to you. But what if that's not the case? What if you could develop a reputation as someone who's firm and assertive, but also someone who is deeply respected, liked, and admired by everyone around you? There's one huge epiphany I had in my corporate career that helped me make that shift, and that is what I'm teaching in today's episode. Let's dive in. Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the show. Today's episode is about one of the single most important communication skills for your professional success, and that is the skill of assertiveness. If being assertive feels hard for you, I want to start by reassuring you that you are not alone in this struggle. This is something that I help my clients with all of the time. It's actually a topic that is built into the curriculum of my group program because of how important it is. And it's something that I personally struggled with at the very beginning of my corporate career when I was struggling with self-confidence and really struggling to find and develop my voice in the workplace. And in fact, the first critical feedback that I ever received in my 9-to-5 career was that I was not on track for a promotion because I was not seen as an assertive voice in the room. And this feedback created a ton of dread because getting promoted was deeply important to me, but I did not see a path to being assertive that felt like it worked for my personality. So I felt this enormous pressure that I was being asked to demonstrate a trait that felt deeply inauthentic to me. Now, luckily, I made a discovery that changed the game for me completely, and that is what I am going to be teaching you in today's episode. As soon as I realized that the word assertiveness was just another word for leadership, it was a massive unlock for me, and all of a sudden I realized that it wasn't about being aggressive or domineering or showing up as someone who I'm not. It was just about having the courage to show up as a leader in those rooms. And everything that you're going to learn in today's episode is rooted in the idea that assertiveness at its core is simply good leadership. And it's not at all about being aggressive or stepping on people's toes. It's just about being a voice in the room who is fiercely committed to forward progress and to helping everyone in the room achieve results that they are proud of. And with that said, in today's episode, you are going to learn 3 non-aggressive ways to be assertive. Now, non-aggressive doesn't mean non-effective. These are highly effective ways of having a bigger voice in the room and demonstrating real leadership, but they are not rooted in conflict or aggression. And in fact, the goal is for you to find which of these 3 approaches feels most natural based on your existing personality. It's not about changing who you are, it's about amplifying who you are. The 3 approaches that you are going to learn today are called, number 1, the scientist approach, number 2, the CEO approach, and number 3, my personal favorite, the Beyoncé approach. I'm going to teach you what each one is and how you can use it to have a stronger voice in the room without being aggressive. Let's dive in. So the first non-aggressive approach to assertiveness that we are going to learn is what I call the scientist. Now, if you think about the role of a scientist, they are someone whose goal is to run experiments and conduct tests so that they can discover a breakthrough and find a solution to a difficult problem. This approach is not only super effective in the field of science, this approach can be used in a corporate environment to find an assertive voice that doesn't feel overly domineering or aggressive. Now, the best way for me to explain this to you is through an example. So let's say you're in a meeting with a bunch of stakeholders and you all are in process of planning your company's next marketing campaign. And a lot of the stakeholders in the room want to replicate the messaging and strategy from the most recent marketing campaign because that campaign performed really well. Now, you know that even though that campaign performed well, the market is changing rapidly, and you know that there are new, fresh topics that are trending among your company's customer base. So your thought process is the opposite thought process of everyone in the room. You believe that instead of replicating the most recent marketing campaign, you believe it is time to evolve and change the messaging of the marketing campaign. So here's what it would look like for you to assert that perspective using the scientist approach. You might say something like, okay, so the big goal that we're all working towards is we want to see solid performance when we run this campaign. And since the last campaign performed well, it makes sense that we'd want to replicate what we did last time. At the same time, we just got back some data that is showing us that our customer base is evolving and they're starting to resonate with a new and different message. So what I'm trying to figure out is how can we replicate the success of the last campaign and evolve our messaging so that we're on top of this new trend. Okay, so in this example, you are acting as a scientist. A scientist's job is to define a tricky problem and figure out how to achieve a breakthrough and solve that problem. In this example, you're doing exactly what a good scientist would do. First of all, you're defining what the goal is. So you tell everyone in the room that the goal is we all want this campaign to perform well. Then, like a good scientist, you start to explore the constraints and the data that will impact your ability to achieve that goal. And then finally, you do the ultimate thing that a good scientist would do, which is that you pose a question or a puzzle to be solved. So in this example, the puzzle that you posed is, how do we replicate the success of the last campaign while also evolving our messaging to reflect this new trend? So just like a scientist would, you're saying, okay, here's the goal. Here's what we know. How do we achieve the solution that we're after? Now, what I love about the scientist approach and about this example is, number one, it creates a collaborative atmosphere in the room. With the scientist method, you're not getting in there and saying, you people are so stupid. I can't believe you don't know about these trends. We need to change the messaging from the marketing campaign. There's no way we can replicate the messaging. Instead, you're making everyone aware that they do need to consider going in another direction, but you're doing so in a way that feels collaborative and respectful. This is going to feel better to your stakeholders, which is going to make them trust you more and be more likely to listen to you and to allow you to guide them to a different solution. Now, the second reason that the scientist approach is so effective is because it sets the stage for everyone in the room to achieve a breakthrough. And this is something that a lot of people don't realize when it comes to assertiveness. If we are too aggressive and we come in and we bulldoze and we just say, I'm right and you need to listen to me, we miss the opportunity to create a breakthrough because we're not facilitating any sort of dialogue. What is so powerful about the scientist method is that it inserts your opinion while also inviting people into that problem-solving process. And when a group of people in a room go deep into collaborative problem-solving, they typically emerge with a solid solution that everyone in the room feels good about. And when you step into the role of scientist and you are the person in the room that says, hey, here is a conflicting piece of information that needs to inform this decision. Let's see if we can solve that together. When you are the one that invites everyone into that problem-solving process, you are the one who gets credit for the solution, which means that when that marketing campaign gets launched and it outperforms the prior marketing campaign, you will get credit for that. You will be seen as the leader that shepherded everyone to that outcome, and you shepherded them to that outcome in a way that felt really good and collaborative. There is no bigger win that you could possibly achieve in your corporate career, in my opinion, than that type of win where everybody gets an outcome that they're proud of and they also feel good about the process that led them to that outcome. Now, if you enjoy the process of solving things and unlocking new answers, then the scientist approach will feel very natural to you because you're doing something you love. You're trying to crack a difficult problem and find that elusive solution. And what gets me even more excited about the scientist method is that if you love problem solving and you lean into the scientist method to be assertive, your positive energy is going to be contagious to everyone in the room. If you love solving puzzles and problems, they're going to feel how excited you are about it. And it's going to feel like this collaborative exercise as opposed to this adversarial battle that's being engaged in. And that enthusiasm is going to help you get buy-in and respect from people in the room. And the beautiful thing is that is you leveraging your natural personality. Instead of changing who you are to be aggressive, you're leaning into your existing natural love of problem solving and using that to be really effective in the room. So that is the scientist method, but I have two other methods that have a different flavor and different vibe and different energy. So with that, I want to pivot from the scientist method into the second method, which I call the CEO method. So I want to start by talking about the role of a CEO. One of the things that a CEO is there to do is to be a visionary. Their role is to inspire people to reach for more, to push people to reimagine what could be possible, and to be that person who really calls the people around them to rise into higher levels of greatness. Now, this approach can also be used as a non-aggressive model for assertiveness. You can think of yourself as being like a CEO in the room whose role is to push people towards deeper levels of greatness. So the best way for me to teach you how to do this is through an example so you can understand what this sounds like. So we're going to go back to the same scenario where you are in a meeting with a bunch of stakeholders and you're all planning a marketing campaign and they want to replicate the most recent marketing campaign and you think it's time for a change. Here's an example of what you might say if you were using the CEO method to be assertive. You might say something like, I'm hearing that it's super important for us to nail the performance of this campaign, and I agree. I actually think that there's potential to possibly outdo the performance we achieved on that recent campaign. I've been looking at some data that shows that our customer base is resonating with a newly trending message. And it got me thinking, if we can fold this new trending message into the next campaign, maybe we can go beyond just matching the last campaign's performance, and maybe we can actually exceed it. Okay, so this is an example of using the CEO approach to be assertive. Now, you'll notice how in this example, I did assert my opinion, and I did communicate that I think we should change the messaging for this marketing campaign. But I did it without being rude or pushy or domineering. I did it by taking on the role of a CEO and framing my suggestion as something that would help everyone in the room outdo themselves and achieve even better than anticipated performance on this campaign. And this is what the CEO approach is all about. Yes, you're sharing your opinion, but you're sharing it in the context of pushing everyone towards an outcome that they would feel proud and excited about, just like a CEO would push their employees and their teams to outdo themselves and find their best possible performance. The CEO approach is very effective because it feels good to your stakeholders when you are pushing for them to create an even bigger success. Rather than pushing against them, you're pushing for them, and you're slowing down and saying, hey, everyone, I think we can do better. I think we can outdo ourselves, and here's how. When people hear you frame your suggestion that way, they're not going to be thinking, oh my gosh, she's so pushy. They're going to be thinking, ooh, I want to do well, and she thinks that we can, and she seems excited about this. Let's hear what it is she has to say. Now, this approach will feel really good and really authentic to you if you like stepping into that visionary role. And if you like being the leader who is inspiring people and pushing people to believe in themselves more deeply. So it's different than the scientist approach. The scientist approach is a problem-solving approach, and the CEO approach is a visionary approach. The beautiful thing is they both work, which means you get to pick which one feels like you. Now, I have one more approach that I'm going to teach you. It's my favorite. It's called the Beyoncé approach. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back from the break, I am going to teach you what it is and how to use it. If you are loving this episode, I have a free ebook that will take you even deeper into the topic of assertiveness. The ebook is called Speak Without Fear: The Smart, Ambitious Woman's Guide to Assertiveness in the Workplace. In this ebook, you'll find specific tactics you can use to speak more assertively. And I give you tips for building your inner confidence, because the more confident you feel, the easier it is to take up space and become a powerful, assertive voice in the room. To grab your copy for free, click the link in the show notes or go to assertivenessebook.com. So many of my clients have told me that their first big breakthrough came from reading this ebook, so you don't want to miss it. I'll drop the link in the show notes. And now, back to the episode. All right, now it is time for the final non-aggressive approach to assertiveness, and I call it the Beyoncé approach. It is, of course, inspired by the great Beyoncé, and specifically, it's inspired by her ability to drop a music album without any sort of marketing, without letting people know that she's about to drop an album. And she has such a strong, committed fan base, and she's so talented that people buy it even though there was no marketing campaign or no big buildup to her releasing the album. So when I think of Beyoncé, I think of someone who is a master of creating so much fandom, so much buy-in, so much excitement that whatever she drops, people are going to be interested in it. The Beyoncé approach to assertiveness is based on that same principle. When you're able to create a lot of fandom and a lot of excitement and a lot of buy-in, you can drop any idea or any suggestion and people in the room will go along with it. The best way for you to learn the Beyoncé approach to assertiveness is to hear an example. So we're going to go back to the example of you being in a meeting with a bunch of stakeholders who want to replicate a marketing campaign that recently performed really well. Here's an example of what it would look like to use the Beyoncé approach to assert your opinion and steer the room in a different direction. Here's what that might sound like. So here's where we're at. Our goal is to match the performance of our most recent marketing campaign. This has me reflecting on a couple of possibilities. First, could it be possible to outperform that prior campaign? Second, could we get an even greater reach by going viral? The reason I'm sharing this is because my team recently uncovered that our customer base is resonating with a newly trending message that is spreading quickly. If we incorporated this new message into the campaign, we open up the possibility of virality and even stronger performance than the prior campaign. What are your thoughts? So this example that I just shared is a perfect example of the Beyoncé approach. So I did assert my suggestion and I did start to steer the room in the direction that I want to go. But before I even shared my suggestion with them, I built a ton of buy-in and anticipation. I talked about exceeding the performance of the most recent marketing campaign. I talked about the possibility of going viral. And I spoke about these things before I shared my actual suggestion. By leading with focusing on potential wins and by seeding the idea with my audience that, hey, maybe this could go bigger. Maybe we could have even more of what we want. I set my audience up to be a yes to my suggestion before I even share it. So just like Beyoncé builds the buy-in, builds the fandom, and then drops the album, when I share my suggestion, I build the excitement, I build the buy-in, I build the anticipation, and then I drop the actual suggestion. And I am dropping that suggestion to an audience who is already bought into it. The power in the Beyoncé approach lies in the fact that it is highly persuasive. Now, being persuasive doesn't mean that you are tricking people or manipulating people. Being persuasive means that you are speaking in a way that genuinely makes people want to hear more and in a way that earns you genuine agreement and buy-in. And this is really what leadership is at its core. It's the ability to get people to follow you and your suggestions because they genuinely want to. So the Beyoncé approach is incredibly powerful because it helps you lead the room, not through force, but through the art of persuasion. So to recap the 3 non-aggressive approaches to assertiveness, we have number 1, the scientist approach. This is where you play the role of the curious problem solver who is guiding everyone in the room towards a better solution. The next approach is the CEO approach. This is where you're playing the role of the visionary who is pushing everyone in the room to reach for higher levels of greatness. And the final approach is the Beyoncé approach. This is where you generate a lot of excitement and buy-in before you even drop your suggestion. Each one of these has a different vibe, a different energy, but the beautiful thing is they're all effective. And they really serve as wonderful proof points of the fact that there are many different ways to speak up powerfully, many different ways to be assertive, and many different ways to lead using your voice. And this philosophy is really at the heart of the coaching work that I do. I am not interested in molding you into someone else. I am interested in helping you figure out how you take your natural personality and your natural strengths as a leader and use those to develop a voice in the room that is equal parts authentic and powerful. If you are interested in doing that work, I want to invite you to come work with me inside my signature program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy. Inside this program, I will help you build genuine confidence and develop an authentic voice as a leader. What makes this program so effective is I guide you through 2 different types of learning. First, you learn the foundations that you need to feel more confident internally. And second, you learn the communication tools you need to sound more effective externally when you're speaking up and using your voice in the room. The absolute best way to join the Art of Speaking Up Academy is to click the link in the show notes and add yourself to the waitlist. When you join the waitlist, you will be invited to enroll early. which means you will get to secure your spot before doors open to the public. And I am always offering bonuses for early enrollment. The bonuses can include a free workshop or a free private session with me, so I don't recommend skipping the waitlist. Add yourself by clicking the link in the show notes or by going to jessguzikcoaching.com/academy. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I had so much fun making this one. I'm going to share my email in the show notes in case you want to reach out and say hi and let me know what you thought of it. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.